Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, as we say, welcome to South Sound Stories Guild's monthly story swap. And the way we do this, for any of you who are watching on Zoom who have not seen any of our story swaps before, we have an opening teller who sort of gets the juice going, and then we have feature tellers that we ask often for people from other guilds to come and tell stories, just so we don't keep hearing our same old selves tell the same stories. So tonight, it's a pretty exciting time because we're going to lead off. Annie Coverly from our group is going to be telling about stories about some things remembering her dad, because it is coming up on Father's Day. And then for the feature tellers, we've got Trish Anderson and Janice Alexander, who are going to be telling stories via Zoom. So that's the one good thing COVID did. It opened us up to a lot more people. So here we are on beautiful waterfront Olympia. It's a nice evening. After the meeting, we'll be able to go out and stroll around a little bit. So I hope you all will do that. So we're going to lead off. Annie, please give us your story about your dad.
Yes. Oh, such a nice warm welcome. Thank you. Well, when I was growing up, my dad, after dinner, would be found down in his den. He had a monocle. Do you remember what those were? Like, he would put it in his eye like this and crouch over his desk and study. And he studied everything. People would bring him a spider in a sack or something. And he would take that spider and he would put it in a jar and put a drop of something in it so the spider would die. And then he would take it out and put a pin through it and put it onto some cotton and put a tiny little label next to it. So he had spider collections, he had butterfly collections, he had beetle collections, he had ant collections, he had collections of every kind, and everybody knew him and would bring him stuff. As a matter of fact, somebody one time brought us a possum with its babies attached in a cage, which sat on top of our washing machine, which my mother hated. It was awful. It was a very scary looking thing. I've seen posts now where they make a possum look cute, but it was not cute, and it stunk to high heaven. Anyway, that was just one of the things that he would end up with. He also had collections of bars of soap that he'd gotten from his travels. He had a stamp collection. He had coin collections. He had collections of every kind. And as a child, if you stood at his door for a while, he might look up and you might be able to come in and he would, show you one of his cool things. But that was not the coolest thing. He also had a lab because he was the head of the science department in a small college. And in his lab, on the back wall were dinosaur bones. He had a crock that was as tall as I was at that age, that was filled with frogs floating in formaldehyde, which he would take out with tweezers and put on a plate and get a scalpel. And then he would slice it open for us and show all the organs inside the frog. Exciting stuff, right? Yeah. And not only that, on the shelves, there was a two-headed calf that had been born that was a taxidermy thing. So there was that. There were ornithology birds. There were just so many fascinating things. One of which was a globe that when he turned it on, it made a crackling sound. And if you put your hands on it, your hair shot up because it was full of static electricity. But the highlight was to take our friends to meet Henrietta. In the corner, in kind of like a glass phone booth kind of thing, was a skeleton. And we would get our friends to shake hands with it. And we knew that Henrietta was a female because there was no penis bone. I expected a laugh. I didn't have to think about it. Anyway, Anyway, and the other fascinating thing was other jars of formaldehyde with things floating in it, one of which was a brain. And Dad would make up stories about whose brain that was, you know? I actually think in retrospect, it was probably a pig's brain, but he would name it and tell stories about people like that. Anyway, it was a fascinating place to take our friends and to be with my dad. It was very cool. But one of the other really cool things about it was because he was the head of the science department, he had the keys to the swimming pool. This is a small town, and it was the only swimming pool in town. And so my family would go in at night, just us, me and my three brothers, and my dad and my mom. And we wouldn't turn on the headlight, you know, there were no lights above. There would just be the underwater lights. So the pool would be lit up with this magical sort of aqua light that was moving with the waves. It was really a magical kind of time. And I had a question for my dad because there was a little girl who lived across the street from us, and she was, I don't know, maybe 3 and really cute. And I thought I would like to buy her to be a baby sister. I thought that would be a cool thing. So I swam up to my dad, and he wasn't a good swimmer. He had a bad knee. He only did the side stroke. But anyway, so we stopped. And I said, you know, Dad, if you were to sell me, how much money would you get? I was trying to figure this out. And he said, you are worth all the diamonds and rubies and emeralds in the world. Makes me weep even now. Something that I've carried with me my whole life. It's a wonderful thing. There were other things about him too. He kind of was an outdoors man, even though he had this bad leg. And his best friend was Bob Kiesling. And Bob Kiesling was completely blind. He was in the Second World War, and a bomb went off or something, and he had kind of a scarred face, and he was completely blind. Well, Bob and my dad would go ice fishing out on the Bears Paw Lake. Now, somebody drug out something that looked like an outhouse, and they would go sit with their chairs over this hole in the ice and spend the day ice fishing. But it was kind of a trip to get them both out there. My dad with his bad leg like this, and Bob completely blind. And we had to walk across the ice in the snowfields to get them there. And there they would sit. And we ate a lot of bony little trout over the winter as a result of this hobby that he had. So that was one of the things that I loved about him. I think as a teenager, we didn't quite know what to think of each other. You know, I think it was hard for my dad I just think he didn't know what to do with me, kind of thing. And it was during the Vietnam War. There was a lot of trauma. I wanted to run away. I couldn't imagine living in this town anymore. So I put together a backpack. I sewed this thing out of a burlap sack and put it on an old frame, and I packed it. So I was ready to go. I didn't know when I was going to go, but I was ready to go. I had my escape plan, was the deal. And one night, or maybe it was even afternoon, I sort of remember it being light. He came in and sat down on the bed next to me. And I don't think we'd really even had a conversation for years, maybe, other than just in passing. And he said, if there's one thing you do for me, graduate from high school. Oh God, high school. I was so ready to not be there anymore, but I didn't want to let my dad down. I still wanted his approval, you know? So I stayed. And it's just one of the things that I remember about him. I mean, that day, he didn't touch me. He didn't hug me. It wasn't his way. And I recognize that now. As I recognize these other things that I've told you about him, that he was really a special person. And he was a wonderful dad in his own way. So I hope you all think about the positive things about your dad on Father's Day. Thanks.
Thank you, Annie. Well, after that, I don't think I'll tell a story about my father because I think it would all be kind of vanilla in flavoring. So that was very good. Thank you. He was an interesting guy and very few people like him. So tonight, I think we are going to have two featured tellers. Trish Anderson, are you up there and ready to go with the story?
Trish is going second.
She's going second. Okay. So first is going to be Janice Alexander. She claims to be a retired school teacher, which tells me she's probably still doing some of that, sort of like you are, Sandra, with the kids. And she takes great pleasure in creating small people made of clay. Well, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever known anyone who did that either. So anyway, she's going to tell us a tale tonight, and I look forward to hearing it. So thank you, Janice.
You're welcome. Trish and I are delighted to be here tonight to share stories with you. We love living in the Pacific Northwest. And just between us, I should probably tell you about what happened to me and my little brother up on the mountain. I was around 10, it was summer, and we had gone as a family to go pick blueberries. My dad parked in the parking lot by the ski lodge and said, we're going to set out from here. All the really good berries are on the other side of the mountain. Nobody goes over there much because of the troll witch that lives in a cave over there. My little brother and I, we looked at each other like, troll witch? We were getting ready to laugh. But then my mom chimed in. Oh, honeys, don't worry about it. The berries will be really great. And as long as we're done before it starts getting dark, there won't be any problem. Anyway, the troll witch can't see very well and can't run very fast. Maybe that's why it's always so hungry. Well, anyway, enough about that. Let's go pick some berries, kids. Wow. It was a beautiful summer day, and you might be thinking, troll witch? It's a Norwegian thing. As I was saying, it was a beautiful day on the mountain. And by afternoon, we had filled many containers with berries. The sun was warm, and my parents decided to put out a blanket and take a short nap. Their last words were, don't go too far, and keep an eye on your little brother. So, okay. Well, I had already filled my bucket. So I was eating berries and putting berries in my pockets and going from bush to bush with my little brother trailing along behind me. And we went further and further and further away without realizing it. We got tired and decided we'd climb up onto a ledge to rest before we started back down. We fell asleep. When I woke up, it was getting dark. And it was colder or cooler, and maybe that's why I woke up. But maybe it was more because of that horrible rotten fish smell and the sound of little twigs and branches breaking below the ledge. Something was down there. And I heard, fish. Oh, I could hear my parents calling for us, but they were getting further away. I thought maybe if I was completely still, it would go away. And then my little brother woke up and started to cry. Shh, 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 hush, hush. It's the troll witch. Shh. too late. From down below came I hear a child. Children, my favorite. I pushed my little brother back behind me and I said, don't say anything, make no noise, no matter what happens. Well, I suppose you want to hear what happened next, right? Yeah, okay. Well, luckily, the troll witch wasn't tall enough to see over the ledge. Unfortunately, a gnarly green hand came up and started feeling around, the long, jagged fingernails scritching across the rock, and it grabbed my foot. So quickly, I slipped my foot out of my shoe and I yelled, "Oh, oh no, oh no! It's got my foot! I can't run away, what'll I do?" And from down below, "Ah, that's terrible. That's gonna break my teeth. I'm still hungry." And the hand came back up. This time I quickly grabbed a small branch, poked it over to the hand. It latched on, and I screamed, "Ow, my bones, you're breaking my bones." I let go, and I yelled, "Oh, it's got my hand. What's going to become of me?" And from down below the ledge, I could hear so dry. Where's the meat? And the hand came back. This time, it caught hold of my coat and began to pull. I held on for a little bit, slipped out of my coat, of course, and I yelled, "Oh no, it's got my skin. Ah, I'll die for sure." And as I let go of the coat, I went, "Oh, oh, 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 oh." From down below came mm, ah, 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 a little fibrous with an odd hint of blueberry. Oh, it's better, but not great. Oh, 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 I don't feel so good. What kind of a child was that anyway? Oh, 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 oh. And we could hear the troll witch slowly groaning and moving away. My little brother and I quickly and quietly got down off the ledge. We got onto the trail and we ran like the wind through the gathering dusk. We caught up with my parents right by the lodge just as the sun was sinking below the horizon. And we all went safely inside. Um, Now, there might be one or two skeptics out there, but somebody thinking, yeah, sure. We all know troll witches aren't real. It's like, well, maybe they're not. Maybe they are. And whatever's up there, it's still hungry. It's still out there. Just so you know. Thank you, thank you. Seth, we're gonna put our little, thing back on while Trish gets in position.
Okay, fine. And while Trish is getting in position, I just have to say, I don't know if you read the newsletter, but It says she was born into a family of iron-faced dwarves, which I've never heard of before. So, but as an ineffable cuteness in a carnival outside of a small town in Iowa. So I'm looking forward to meeting Trish, even though it's on Zoom. So
There she is.
there she is.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, there you go.
As a child of the peculiar Northwest, you would think I had some stories to tell. And I do. This one started in Seattle. A long time ago, when I was about 2 or 3, I graduated from my crib to a regular bed. And my parents got me a wonderful mahogany bedroom set. There was a big dresser. There was a dressing table with a velveteen bench and a mirror. There was a nightstand and the bed. Now, instead of the solid headboard and footboard, my bed just had lovely, gracefully arching rails. They were feminine, but not at all frilly. It was something a girl could grow into. Now, because I wasn't safely behind the bars of my crib, there were some scary things in my nighttime bedroom that needed to be looked into. Things like the clothes in my closet that danced all night by themselves, and the gangly creature with the big lamp-like eyes that stood right where the bedroom door met the wall. Now, I complained to my parents about these things, and my loving parents made sure that every night that closet door was closed and the bedroom door was open just a little bit so I could whisk through if I needed to. Reassured, I nestled into those crisp white sheets, and the faint smell of lavender bloomed all around me, while the sprigs of roses on the wallpaper faded in the twilight. I snuggled into my pillow and waited for the little blue train every night to take me to dreamland. But what I got that one night were a pair of bony, midnight colored hands that came up from the headboard and clutched and grabbed and tried to drag me down between the bed and the wall. Oh, I didn't like that, so I wiggled and squirmed and I got myself free, scooted down to the foot of the bed, and I fell asleep. Well, I should have complained about those hands, but I never did. And it's because of the screaming woman incident. One day I was playing in my bedroom and I heard a woman start to scream. Sounded like the neighbor. It just went on and on. I went downstairs and I asked my parents, why is that woman screaming? Well, they looked at each other and they looked at me and said, oh, honey, that's just fanciful thinking. There is no woman screaming. We even went out on the front stoop and they still couldn't hear her. From that, I understood that if it didn't involve opening or closing doors, there were things that my parents just weren't there to deal with. So I'm a practical person, I'm a practical child. I coped. I learned to never fall asleep with my arm over my head, always sleep as far down to the foot of my bed as I could, and always keep a stranglehold on that pillow. So I tangled with those horrible hands on numerous occasions. But as time went by, those occasions grew fewer and farther between. And eventually they stopped altogether. Well, flip forward many years. I am a married woman. I have a son and a house down in Portland. My mother sent along the bedroom set to fill up the empty corners in that big old house. I never mentioned my weird history with that bed. In fact, I'd forgotten all about it until one day. My son's best friend, Scotty, came to spend the night. The next morning, he came to me and he said, I don't like that bed. Oh, why is that? I don't like that bed. It's awful. Now, don't be angry at me because I never followed up on that statement. I didn't want fanciful thinking to ruin a perfectly good bed. Well, flip forward a few more years. I'm still living in the house with my dog. My husband and I divorced. My son grew up and left home. And there I was with that bed. I didn't want fanciful thinking to ruin the only bed in the house. So on those several occasions, when I woke up in the middle of the night with the top sheet wound tightly around my neck, I coped. I dealt with it. I got myself a duvet where the sheet is an envelope for the quilt. And there's not enough free plate to go around somebody's neck. Well, one morning I had just drifted awake and I felt a poke in the back of my shoulder. I marveled at how the dog could hear my eyelids open. But I really wanted just a few more minutes of pillow time. But I got another poke in the back of my shoulder. I realized my dear old dog needed to go outside. So I rolled over, expecting to see his smiling face and wagging tail. But no, my dog was flat out asleep halfway across the room. It wasn't the dog that wanted my attention. Was that bed haunted? I know what I think. But I never told my curious history with that bed to the people I sold it to. I didn't want fanciful thinking to ruin a perfectly good bed. Thank you, thank you. Who knew that my childhood would be so haunted? There was another time. I was 11 when it happened. And once again, my parents had dragged my brothers and me out to the wild west coast of the Olympic Peninsula. God only knows why. There is nothing there but mile after square mile of dark evergreen trees that crowded the little two-lane highway that bumped along well away from the scenic rocky coast. And somehow all the kids that we'd played with in years past, they disappeared. So nothing to do and nobody to do it with. It was boring. So there I was, sitting on the front porch of Burns Gasoline Store out on the highway, working on a popsicle and waiting for something to happen. A big old Chevy Suburban without estate plates rolled in, and a good-looking couple got out. He went into the store to pay for his gasoline, and she came and sat down on the porch right next to me. Hi, my name is Sally. Are you from around here? Yes, ma'am. Might as well be. Fabulous. Do you happen to know where the Grimson property is? Oh, we all knew where the Grimson place was, the way you'd want to know where a yellow jacket nest was, so you could avoid it. Josiah Grimson had been a lumber baron back in the late 1800s, and he built a mansion on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Rumor had it that it had been abandoned very soon after it was built. But all us kids knew that Josiah Grimson lived there still, feasting on the blood of small children and sucking the life force out of teenagers. But I didn't tell Sally any of that. I just said, yes, ma'am, I know where the Grimson place is. Fabulous. Do you think you could tell me how to get there? I almost choked on my popsicle. Why? Why would anybody want to go there? It's just a creepy abandoned house. My husband Mike and I just bought the place. We're gonna turn it into a hotel. I should have told her it was a bad place for a hotel. But what did I know? I was a kid. Well, I said, if you go up the highway and take a left, not the first one, no, that's all overgrown. Take the second one, and then you go in a ways and there's a Y. And if you go left, right, no, take the left and then go right. Oh, fudge. If you drive really slow, I could probably show you the way on my bike. So Mike and Sally thought that was fabulous too. And off we went, me with my braids flying behind me and Mike and Sally creeping along in their ginormous car. Now, I had never intended to go all the way in to the house itself. I was just going to show him which road to take and let it go at that. But the blackberry vines had grown in so close to the sides of the road that I could hear the thorns scraping on the side of their car. And there was no place for me to pull over. No, I'd been in there before. A couple years back, all us kids had whipped ourselves into a frenzy of daring do and challenged each other to run up and touch the front steps. I wouldn't do it. And ever since, my stinky brothers have called me Chicken Girl. Terrible. Well, it was just the way I remembered. It's your standard issue, creepy house, 3 stories tall, pointy roofs, and a big stone porch that went all the way around. It'd been painted once, but that had all flaked away. Instead of the usual silvery gray you get, It was more the color a marshmallow gets just before it catches fire. But the part I hated the most were those big blank windows. I was afraid to look in them because I was afraid Josiah Grimson would be leering out at me, lusting for my blood. Well, Sally and Mike got out of their big car, and Mike went up to the big front door. Mike, honey, I've got the key. Don't need it, Sal. The door is open. Oh, I hope we don't have squatters to evict. A little icy trickle of fear went down my spine. I was just about to make my farewells when Sally turned to me and said, "Hey, how would you like a tour? You could be our first guest." Instantly, two voices clamored in my mind. The voice of panic said, but the voice of reason said, there's two adults. It's daylight. If I go in, my stinky brothers will have to stop calling me chicken girl. So, of course, I followed the voice of reason. Now, if the outside was creepy, the inside was 10 times creepier. Because it looked like somebody really did still live there. Somebody liked a lot of dust, but there were rugs and there's furniture and bookcases with books and pictures and knickknacks, and Sally was over the moon. Oh, Mike, honey, I don't think we'll even need to buy furniture. Just then, that big front door slammed shut. We all jumped. And like one six-legged creature, we rushed into the front hall. And Mike, who was no small creature himself, he heaved and he pulled and he hauled on that door. But he couldn't get it to budge. It was shut. Oh, the joys of living at the coast. Well, I got a few tricks up my sleeve. I tell you what, girls, for now, let's just go around and go out a back door. So we all went from room to room to room to room to room, and there was no back door. We wound up in a little room just off the kitchen, where a window looked out onto that porch. But the glass was all broken out, like somebody was breaking out of the house. And there was a big rusty stain on the wall and the floor underneath the window. Oh, I could just barely contain myself while Mike finished picking the broken glass out of the window frame. Once we were outside, we all zoomed around to the front, and Mike went to get an enormous toolbox out of his car. He went up to the front door, gave it a little push, and it opened wide. "Oh," he said, "looks like we have foundation problems." Well, I'll tell you what, girls, I'm gonna block the door open for now with the toolbox. And then I'm gonna go down in the cellar and see what's going on. That little icy trickle of fear Oh, it was Niagara Falls by now. Oh, I was just reaching for my bike to get on out of there when Sally turned to me with a sack of groceries in her hand, saying, "Here, take these into the kitchen for me, will you?" Instantly, two voices clamored in my head. The voice of panic said, and the voice of reason said, "You know, if you were to get a souvenir, something that could only come from the Grimson place, well, your brothers would have to give you proper respect forever." Of course, I listened to the voice of reason. So Sally and I followed Mike into the kitchen. He found the cellar door in that little room just off the kitchen. And we heard him clump down the stairs, but he stopped after just a couple of steps. And we heard a deep, bone rattling purr. I was just trying to get my head around how somebody could get a diesel locomotive into a cellar when Mike screamed, "Ah!" And it was broken off by a wet, tearing sound. Sally screamed and she sprinted for the cellar door. And I want to say I was going to get help, but I was really running for my life. And I went through the front hall, and that big door was slamming itself against the toolbox. I cleared the front porch and the steps in a single bound. I was on my bike and pedaling like all the hounds of hell were after me. When I stopped screaming long enough to take a breath, I heard something big moving in the bushes and the blackberries behind me. But I didn't stop to turn around. I saw a blackberry vine snake across the road ahead of me. And then it was nothing but speed all the way down the highway to Burns gasoline store. I was sobbing for breath when I got there. "Oh, ambulance! Grimson Place!" Vern looked a little puzzled, but he made the call. And after he hung up, he said, "Honey, what's going on? Tell me." Now, I'm not proud to say this, but I just wailed. "I want my mom." So Vern called her too. And while we were waiting for for my mom to get there, I saw the sheriff speed by and the volunteer fire department siren went off. When my mom got there, I leapt into her arms and clung to her like a 3-year-old in the middle of a nightmare. When she was just getting me into the car, the sheriff rolled in. "Honey, are you sure it was the Grimson place? Because there's no road back there anymore. It's just blackberries." I must have looked pretty shaken up, because the sheriff and his deputy and the volunteer fire department spent the rest of the day hacking their way back into the Grimson place. That night at the Italian restaurant, there was a tight little knot of men over by the cigarette machine. I heard one guy start, "Yeah, we spent the afternoon hacking our way into the house, and wouldn't you know, there was a Chevy Suburban there with this year's tags on the plate." Another guy moaned, "Oh, the blood. Oh, I've seen some terrible logging accidents," but then he saw me and he stopped. And all the men turned and stared at me. The next day, our car was packed and we were on the road before breakfast. And we still had a few days to go on the cabin. Yeah, I should have told them it was a bad place for a hotel. But what did I know? I was a kid. And now, let's bring back Janice.
Whew. Time to calm down a little bit after that one, isn't it? Do remember, we call our little offering here Beyond Belief. Or is it? You know. Well, on a slightly different note, lately, I've been thinking a lot about how hard it is to be a baby. There's so much to do to learn the world. And then once you get more experience, you have to figure out what's real and what isn't. And you're not done yet. Because then you have to find a way to make your peace with that space in between real and not real. And just think about it. Every single person that you see here tonight, and wherever you go, we all started out as a baby. And we did a lot of hard work to get to where we are today. You've done a great job. Good job. Give yourself a hand. Good work, everybody. Nice going. Well, my own hardworking babyhood began in Missouri, pretty much the middle of the United States. Some people call it flyover country, but we always called it the heartland. And on my journey into childhood, from being a baby, I had the assistance of my two older brothers. Mostly helpful. Every once in a while, they just could not resist trying to see if they could fool me, just to see if they could lead me astray. I remember this one time. You know those old jump ropes we used to have? They tied a jump rope around each one of my teddy bear's wrists so they could make its arms move. It went like this. Janice, Janice, come quick. Your teddy bear, it's alive. Well, so I go, and there sitting in the doll buggy is my teddy bear with the thick jump ropes around its arms and wrists, and it's going. And the jump ropes are running out of the buggy and down and around and into a nearby closet. I was 4 years old, but it's not going to be that easy. But you know, it isn't always easy to tell what's real and what's not. Skip ahead a few years, and when I was 10, my family went on a 3-week camping trip from Missouri to the West Coast. And we had my father timing us to see how long it took us to set up camp. And my mom was insisting that each of us kids keep a trip diary, write in it every night. We took the northern route, which pretty much followed the Oregon Trail. And it was there in Wyoming that I first saw it. Lepus temperamentalis, the great Western jackalope, said to be a cross between a prehistoric giant jackrabbit and a now extinct pygmy antelope. It was, we had stopped for gas, and there's a little store attached to the gas station always, and I had gone in to get some candy, and there it was on the wall, the medium-sized head of a real rabbit with antlers. I had never seen anything like that. I talked to the clerk. She said, "Oh yeah, it's real. They're almost extinct now. You don't see them much on account of they only reproduce during thunderstorms when lightning strikes." Strangely, every little store where we stopped to get gas had at least one pricey jackalope head for sale. I didn't even ask my dad to buy one, but they also, all of them had tons of postcards with photographic evidence of the existence of jackalopes. And each postcard had some little facts on the back. Did you know that the jackalope is sometimes called the warrior rabbit? Although usually shy, they can be very aggressive if provoked. Interestingly, jackalope milk is said to have medicinal properties. It's very rare, and it can be obtained because the jackalopes sleep on their backs. However, important fact, gathering jackalope milk is extremely hazardous and should be avoided. I wrote that down in my diary. The postcards were irresistible. I kept buying them. To my surprise, Jackson, Wyoming is the jackalope capital of the United States. They even have a huge jackalope sculpture in the middle of town, and they sell hunting licenses, only valid on June 31st from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. Oh, and it should be mentioned, jackalopes are renowned as accomplished singers. We have it verified by cowboys who've heard them out on the range in the distance, joining in with their songs. And the cowboys would often put out shallow pans of beer to lure the jackalopes closer. More from my diary. Well, the highlight of the trip, one of the highlights, was we got to go on a trail ride by the Platte River, led by a real old cowboy. It was so exciting. We went right along the the pioneers on their way to Oregon often went that way. He told us, the old cowboy did, he told us that there was a guy who had proof of jackalopes singing. Turned out this guy had rented a horse from his cousin, and he wanted to go alone, so he went alone, and he spent the night by the river, this guy did, and late at night in the distance he heard singing. Now, he wasn't sure because, well, it was a little high for cowboys, but then as he got to hear the words, he knew he was hearing jackalopes sing. Luckily, he was an ethnomusicologist, and he had his field recording equipment with him. He made a tape of jackalopes singing. Too bad my dad wouldn't let us buy one of the copies the old cowboy had for sale. But I did get to hear it. It was a familiar tune. They'd probably learned it from the cowboys. And I wrote the words down in my diary. I still remember how it goes. Maybe you'd like to hear it. Goes like this. Okay, here it goes. You cowboys at night, round your fires so bright, with your voices lifted in song. Just put out some beer if you want to hear us jackalopes singing along. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the jackalope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Oh, it was a great trip. Thank you. It was a fun trip. And even though I didn't end up with a copy of the tape, I did arrive home with a great collection of postcards and an appreciation for that space between real and not real, where possibilities thrive and antlered rabbits sing. Thank you. Thank you. Come on in, Trish.
Well, thank you, Janice. That was a great story about the jackalopes, which I've not heard before, and I think the blueberry picking, gee, I didn't know that was going to be quite so scary. And Trish, I think after hearing your story about your bed and everything, you know, I thought I'd finally gotten past it, but I think I'm going to sleep with my lights on from now on, and a little bit of a in the room will help me a lot. So thank you, the two of you, for your stories about beyond belief. And it's one of the great things Zoom has done, which has been able to bring in storytellers like you to our South Sound Story Group. So thank you again. Another big round of applause.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much.
So I think at this point, we're going to take a little 10-minute break. Let's move around the corner. The boardwalk's out there, take a little break, come back, and then we're going to have John will be telling a story. And who else is going to tell tonight? Sandra and Toby, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe, okay. I think we'll have enough time, so. Anyway, so let's take a 10-minute break. It's straight up about 7 o'clock, come back about 10 after. Take a little bit of a walk, smoke them if you got them. Dean, would you like to please come up and tell a little bit of a story about your dad?
Thank you for the idea. But before I get to Dad, that song that was sung tonight, "Oh, Give Me a Home Where the Buffalo Roam," in the space between imagination and reality, for years, or seldom is heard a discouraging word. I thought Seldom was a cowboy, and he didn't talk much, and then he was called Seldom. And because he did, but when he'd go, tornado coming. It was always a discouraging word. You know, kind of like Cassandra of Greek fame. Anyway, just that's a one-off thought. Well, my father, Martin Karl Gustav Olsen, or could have been Karl Martin, he was never sure. He was a laconic Swede, most undemonstrative, and he always said, "Don't tell me a yoke on a Friday, I'll laugh in church on Sunday." And that was his sense of humor. And he would tell us the story. We had a bull in our kitchen table. I was in high school. My older brother was about to graduate and go off to college, and my younger brother was in junior high. There was a big bowl of navel oranges in Southern California on the table. And my father said, "Oranges, you just don't know what they meant when I was a child." When I was a boy in Sweden, we go, "Oh, here we go." And the distance he walked from home to school through the snowdrifts, that every time he told the story got higher and the wind blew harder and the distance was greater. But just before the Christmas holiday, we came into the classroom, on everyone's desk was an orange. A bright orange. And we go, yeah, okay. Well, most everybody ripped into they were probably Spanish, blood oranges, small, tight, compact things. Well, just about everybody ripped into them except my father, who wanted to get it all the way home. I don't think he was going to share it when he got home, but he would peel it and triumphantly let the juices flow. Well, as they were walking through the snow drifts and the blowing wind and the cold on that long trek home, his older brother said, "You've got a big jaw, Martin. I bet you could carry that orange in your mouth like a retriever." And my father took the bet, and he got that orange in his mouth, and he carried it all the way home before he pulled it out and ate it. We said, "There's no way. Come on." And my brother Peter picked up one of those big desert-born navel oranges and said, "Go ahead, show us." Well, this undemonstrative man took that orange, opened up his rather significant jaw, and shoved it in. But there it was, popping out, and going in as one thing, coming out as another. And his eyes were watering, and he couldn't get it out, and we're falling over ourselves laughing. The phone rings, and my brother Peter goes to answer it and says, "Oh, no, my dad can't come to the phone right now. The orange has got his tongue." And he hangs up. Well, then my mother, Dr. Georgia Johnson, PhD, MD, goes and gets her big doctor's bag, pulls out a scalpel, and does surgery on the navel, removes the navel, presses my father's head from the top and the bottom, and the juice shoots across the table, and then he's able to pull it out. Well, after that, whenever my father didn't seem to have a lot to say, or he would go, "Oh," which he preceded many a sentence with, "Oh," we'd say, "Orange got your tongue?"
Well, again, a story I will never forget. So thank you. John, would you like to come up and spin the yarn with us tonight? Please. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. I got a little Johnny story to tell you. My mom was the greatest mom there was. She was really good. She looked through the Reader Digest, Look magazine, Life magazine, looking for things for us kids to do and to eat. Now, my sister Blister used to say that we were going to have bear's ears for dinner, and that way we could hear better. That was a joke, my sister, but I didn't like it. So one night at dinner table, there's my mom, my dad, Blister, my sister, my brother Lubnett, and of course me. We're sitting there at the dinner. Now my mom had put these little tiny itty bitty glasses on the table. Lubnett called them shot glasses because you shot a big glass and that's what was left, a shot glass. I thought that was really cool. Well, in that shot glass was some purple liquid. purple. Now, my mother said it was a French something pasta, and we're just supposed to sip it. It was Moogad David wine. Oh my goodness. We weren't even allowed pop. We were gonna have Moogad David wine. Well, I brought that up to my nose and it stunk like gasoline in my dad's old socks. But I did sip it like my mom told me. Now, we did this for a long time. And then one night, I think it was a Friday, Blister went to her friend's Pat's and spent the night. My brother Ludnut went somewhere. We never knew where he went. He'd just come and go every now and then. My dad, who was a fireman, had to go to the fire hall because it was winter and they have to stay at the fire hall, two of them, because there's always chimney fires. And didn't know what that really meant, but there were chimney fires. So that just left my mom and me. We had a hamburger and a little bit of that Moogad wine. Oh, it was terrible. And she always said, you're gonna appreciate your food drinking this. Well, that was kind of silly because you didn't have to tell me. All I needed my food is a bigger spoon. Well, after dinner, my mother went and laid down because she had a headache. She always had headaches. My brother knew why she had a headache. My sister knew why she had a headache, but they wouldn't tell me. I couldn't figure it out. So she was in the bedroom and I was sitting on the floor listening to Johnny Dollar, my favorite detective, a radio show. I was listening and then I started to think, and my dad always told me this: don't think about it all day, just get up and do it. So I got up and did it. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed the kitchen chair, put it over by the cupboard, climbed up, got that big jar of Moogad David wine down and poured it in a glass, a big glass. Put it back up and I drank that down. Then I went in and brushed my teeth. The reason I brushed my teeth was my dad always said my mother had ears and a nose and a very good nose. She could hear and smell a mosquito fart. So I really brushed hard. I went back to Johnny the Dollar and was listening and I got to thinking again. So I pulled the chair over and climbed up. I think I might have done it 3 times. I lost count. But I did remember one thing. I remembered my mother saying appreciate. I didn't know what it meant yet, but I think I was appreciating that Moogad David wine. Oh, I was sitting there and then all of a sudden I started thinking again. I jumped up, went into the back porch and grabbed the broom. I brought the broom out and I went over to my dad's lamp and took off the lampshade and put it on my head. And I put that broom there and I started marching. And when I walked by the big living room window, I saluted. And do you know what? The guy outside saluted back at me. So I turned around and came back and I stood in front of that window. And that guy saluted again. And he saluted again. Stop! And I yelled with all my might, stop! John Harold, what are you doing? I knew my mother's voice. I could feel the ground start to give way underneath my feet. My heart started to slow down. John, what are you doing? I was saluting that guy outside and he won't stop. I've got to tell you something. I might have just had a little bit of that Moogad wine. a little bit, I didn't have much. She took the broom, put it down, took the lampshade, put it away, grabbed my hand and says, we're gonna talk about this in the morning. But now you're gonna go in and lay down in my bed. That was good. My mother's bed was huge. I just had a little tiny bed. And I'd always fall out of it. But my dad cut the legs off, so now when I fall out, I don't hurt myself anymore. But I got to sleep in hers. Now, my mother always had good ideas. This was not one of them. I laid down. All of a sudden, I saw that ceiling start to move. And it started to go a little bit faster and a little faster. Then the wall started moving. And they were going the other way. I reached out, I grabbed the sheets, I grabbed the blanket. My mother comes in, John, are you okay? Mom, I think that was it. It was a volcano, purple volcano. It went up, it got the walls, it got the bedspread, it got the sheets, the pillowcases, it got everything was purple, including me. I didn't get my mother. Her face was red, blinking red like the cup, red light, just blinking. She took me in and gave me a bath and put me to bed. That morning I woke up and she was standing over me. She said, would you like to tell me about last night? Yeah. I think, Mom, I think that Morgan David Wine doesn't appreciate me. Thank you.
Hi, Jinx, and I don't know if I believe all the stories you tell about your childhood or not. It sounds pretty dang interesting. And kind of jealous, but not of that. Anyway, so Toby is going to tell us a story tonight for a wrap up. So please come up and tell a story, Toby.
Insects are arthropods with 3 body parts: head, thorax, abdomen, and they don't fart. That's what I was always chant when I was a kid, collecting insects. When I was a 3rd grade teacher, we had pets in our classroom, insect pets. There was a tank full of Madagascar hissing cockroaches, and a cage crawling with crickets. It sounded like perpetual summer in my class, but actually it was a food source for Buffy, the cricket slayer, tarantula. Now, one of the greatest things in my class that the kids really appreciated was show and tell. The kids would bring in their Matchbox or Hot Wheel car collections, and other kids would bring their My Little Pony sets. But we had one rule for show and tell: no pets allowed. No mammals can be brought into the classroom. It was one afternoon, Mrs. Suzuki came to see me. Anderson-san, my son Saburo, as you know, was just learning English and he's so shy. May he please bring in his pet hamster for show and tell? Onegai shimasu. Onegai shimasu is the most polite form of Japanese of saying, please. Yes, of course, Mrs. Suzuki. He can bring in his pet, and which he did in the cage. He set it down on his desk, and already I could hear that the trundle wheel. And the kids gathered around. Saburo was the star. Well, recess was over and the kids were dribbling back in, and Sally immediately comes to the cage. And Mrs. Anderson, I think something's wrong with the hamster. What do you mean? Oh, this hamster was curled up into a real tight ball. It didn't move. Just then Saburo comes, non-bucket, hamuratu. look at Sally. Sally, towel. I grab hold of that hamster, put it down. Right, right. CPR. 1, 2, 3, 4, staying alive. Boom! And its beady eyes just blinked open and it bit my finger. Oh, I tossed it back into the cage. Right, right. Goes back on that trundle wheel. That weekend, I went to see my sister, who has this beautiful aquarium with all these exotic fish. And she and I went to Aqua World to get very special food. Gluten-free, mealworm oil infused flakes, very expensive. And as she was putting it on her shelf, I was admiring her fish. Hey, Ad, you better come and take a look. There's some goldfish that's floating upside down. What do you mean? Oh, that's my prize goldfish. It was one of those goldfish with the googly eyes. What am I gonna do? Towel. She brought me the towel. Got the fish. I unhooked the 2 wires from the water purifier. Clear! Again, Addie, clear! And that fish started going up, wiggling. Stuck it back into the tank, and there it was, peacefully swimming around. It's a tradition in my school to have a parent-teacher potluck. And so I was busy filling my plate with lasagna and mashed potatoes and, oh, excuse me, I bumped into this woman who was wearing a hijab, a head covering with and she was wearing a beautiful sarong. And she looked at me, Saudara Ada Rasan, you have the touch. She was gone. The touch. Well, back at home, Brett was just fed up with these ants that were just hanging around our back porch. I'm calling the pest guy. I've had it. Well, I wasn't really too crazy about that, but 3 days later, Andersons, I have you down here for ant demolition. The touch. I'll give it a go. So I looked at this pest guy. You feel sick? Oh, I don't feel well. You want to go home? Oh, I'm going to go home. And he left. So I go back, check on the back porch. Those ants, they are gone. The touch. My daughter invited me to come to her house to help out with a garden party she was having. Mom, I'm not going to use that citronella candle stuff. It stinks. If the mosquitoes come, buzz around and bite people, so be it. Just a sec. Let me check it out. So I go to her garden and I am going through the perimeter. And her guests are coming in with the party, drinking champagne. Which Home Depot do you go to get this insect spray? It's incredible. No bugs. My daughter and I, we exchange glances. Now I have my own business. My card reads, for a bug-free garden party, wedding, or funeral, call Toby One Kenobi, the insect whisperer. Oh, excuse me. Hello? Toby One. Garden bar mitzvah? Bugs? I'll be right over. I also make emergency calls. Now, remember, Toby One, the insect whisperer.
Thank you, Toby. So some great tales. I have to ask, is there anybody on Zoom who wanted to tell a story? We still have a little bit of time before we normally take our break. Is there anybody up there, Brett? Can you see anybody waving their hands?
Let's put them up and see. All right, come on.
Anybody wants to just unmute yourself and speak? Is Mitch there?
Putting his hand up.
Mitch is there.
Okay,
Mitch is not yet.
No, he's shaking his head
Okay.
shaking his head up and down or sideways.
sideways.
How about
Okay.
Ann?
Who?
Ann found.
That's her picture.
No, she's
Oh.
frozen in time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess that's a wrap for tonight, and I think a few commercial announcements to make.
Yeah, that.
Okay, so, let's see, southsoundstory.org, look at it. Mitch has been upgrading that with some of our events and everything. And our next thing that we're going to have is Stories in the Park, Stories in the Dark on August 9th, 8-9. So hope you'll be there. The first hour, we have general stories. It'll be at Squaxin, previously Priest Point Park, up in the shelter. Bring some bug spray. If you don't have any, we'll have some. Bring a chair.
That's one.
Yeah, Toby-Wan Kenobi will be there. So we'll send her around the perimeter and bring a flashlight and a comfortable chair. And we'll have some little music and an MC there for us. We're gonna do it up big this time. And the second hour, we're gonna have some scary stories. And I'm trying to think of one that I'm supposed to tell. And so I'll be working on that, I promise. And it should be a great time. Let's see, what else? I think we have, let me get right to this, can't read my writing here. We're going to have Story Oli, let's see. I wrote this down. Story Oli is gonna be,
On our website anyways.
yeah, look on our website, please. Sorry. So I'm fired. Anyway, look on our website, which is good. So it'll be a great one. And I think that's it. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add?
No meeting in July.
No meeting in July. We're taking the month off. So we'll see you in August 9th. Don't forget, be there, be square, and we look forward to it. And thank you, everybody, for coming in person. And also for those of you on on Zoom. Brett, thanks for setting up the Zoom for us. We always have a little exciting time about 5:30 around here. We go, how do you log on to this thing? Where's the camera? Why can't we get into Zoom? And fortunately, we were able to do it this month again. So, and Annie, thank you for opening up and telling us about your very wonderful, exciting, and very interesting dad. Okay. Thank you again, and we hope to see you soon.